the omni-reflective consciousness. Today's subject of discourse is omni-reflective consciousness. Pratisamvedi Purusha. Who is Pratisamvedi? When an object, due to its objective existence, is substantiated as the counterpart of another action, or as the counterpart of an existence, that object is called Pratisamvedi. For instance, when the sound wave is reflected on an object, we hear the echo of the original sound. The object on which the original wave is reflected is called Pratisamvedi, reflecting plate. Such an action is called Samvedana. The reaction to this action is called Pratisamvedana. That is, the action is Samvedana and the reaction is Pratisamvedana. When human beings proceed towards the cause from the effect along the path of the law of causation, they finally reach a stage where they only see the effect and not the cause. For example, the cause of a tree is a seed, and the cause of a seed is the tree. A stage is reached when the cause of the seed is no longer known. The intellect fails to proceed any further. The supreme cause remains beyond the mind's periphery, on the other side of creation. The human mind cannot reach it, because it remains embedded in Paramapurusha. Whenever there is a reflection, there must be a reflecting plate. Similarly, whenever there is Pratisamvedana, there must be a Pratisamvedi. Thus, in the process of analysis, the last Pratisamvedi will be none other than Paramapurusha. One of the meanings of the Sanskrit root verb is Krish is to determine one's existence. Krishna means the entity on whom the existence of all other entities depends. Krishna is the supreme Samvedi. One can never reach the supreme Pratisamvedi by following the path of analysis. This path causes one to believe that one's mother, father, and even the limbs of one's own body are all separate entities. The path of Dharma or spirituality is the path of synthesis. It is the path which synthesizes the many into one, and helps one to discover the supreme unity in the midst of diversity. The one who treads the path of synthesis ultimately discovers that what was once multiplicity has been transformed into the supreme singularity. In the first stage of synthesis, one will have to consolidate all the expressions of the sense organs, and then withdraw them into Shita. Suppose you see something. The original waves of an object assimilated by your eye organ will be reflected in your Shita. Only then will you be able to perceive that object. But if those waves assimilated by your eyes are not properly reflected in Shita, you cannot see anything. In the next stage, the existence of Shita is substantiated by Aham Tattva or Durai, its reflecting plate. Thus, on the path of synthesis, Shita will have to be merged in Aham Tattva. In the subsequent stage, all the faculties of Aham Tattva will have to be merged into Mahatattva, the existential I. And in the fourth stage, the faculties of Mahatattva will have to be merged into Jivatma, or unit consciousness. The Pratisamvedi of Jivatma is Paramapurusha. Thus, in the process of synthesis, human beings move towards Paramapurusha. What is the meaning of the term Purusha? The first meaning is Purushete ya saha Purushaha. That is, the entity that lies quiescent in the psychophysical structure of another entity is called Purusha. You must have noticed that in a house where a marriage ceremony is being held, different people perform certain tasks. The head of the family, however, does not do any specific task, but supervises the proper completion of all tasks. Similarly, Purusha, the cognitive faculty, lies hidden in the physical body. Without his wish, no organ of the body can function. The second meaning of Purusha is Purasi Tistati Ya Sa Purushaha. The entity that remains before all other entities is Purusha. The import of both the above definitions is the same. Paramapurusha is the supreme Pratisamvedi. You may have thought about the primordial cause of this creation. Human beings have been trying to discover this ultimate cause in various ways. Primitive human beings had an undeveloped intellect. To them, rainfall, the dawn and rise were the symbols of gods and goddesses. Matter was of paramount importance in their lives. It was long afterwards that human beings realized that Paramapurusha is the supreme. It was long afterwards that human beings realized that Paramapurusha is the supreme cause of creation. Kalaha svabhavo niyatir yadrisha bhutani yonihi purusha iti shintyaha samyogo eshamna tatvatmavavat tatma pyanishaha sukhaha dukkha hetu. Time, nature, fate, accident, and the five fundamental factors. The combination of all these was thought to be the supreme cause of creation. By trying to discover the original cause of creation, human beings thought that it must be eternal temples. But when intellect developed, they discovered that hypothesis to be incorrect, because time is nothing but the mental measurement of the motivity of the action. If there is no action, there is no question of any measurement of time. If the moon does not move around the earth, no question of days, months, or years can arise. Hence, time is not the original cause. Yet, out of inquisitiveness, human beings continue to search for the ultimate cause of creation. A question arose in their minds: is nature the ultimate cause? The answer is no. Prakriti, the supreme operative principle, functions according to the limited freedom it has been granted by Purusha, the supreme cognitive faculty. Purusha is the transcendental entity. Prakriti is merely the immanent power of Purusha. Shakti sa Shivasya Shaktihi. The style in which Purusha functions is called nature. Nature cannot act independently, and thus cannot be regarded as the absolute cause of creation, the supreme reflecting plate. Is fate, niyati, the primordial cause of creation? The word niyati means fate, or providence. The accumulated reaction of the action you once did will definitely be expressed one day. This reaction is called niyati. It is true that human beings are controlled by niyati or fate. The environment into which one is born is the most congenial for the expression of the unexpressed reactive momenta, and the circumstances in which one exists must be accepted as the result of one's actions. This constitutes one's fate or niyati. According to their fate, people are born under particular planetary positions, but they are not guided by those planets. They are guided by their own fate, which they themselves have created. Hence, niyati or fate also cannot be the supreme reflecting one. Sharama Pratisamvedi. I would like to add further that those who are fatalists are also misguided. It is wrong to leave everything to fate without taking any initiative at a time of grave danger. Once a person has created his or her fate through his or her own actions, it is certainly not proper to completely surrender to that self-created fate. If time, kala, nature, svabhava, and fate, niyati, are not the supreme factor, then is action, yadrisha, the primordial cause. In fact, in the world, there is no accident. Everything is an incident. The seed of a mango becomes a tree in due course. But when the cause is quickly transformed into effect, we call it an accident, because we can see the effect but not its cause. In fact, the concept of accident is a defective notion created by our ignorance. Many people consider an earthquake to be an accident, but this is incorrect. Perhaps a huge stone took 10 million years to move from one place to another, but when it really did fall, then the action of falling took place in only a few seconds, whereas the cause of the action was preparing to reach this consummate state for many years. Hence you should bear in mind that this vast and varied universe was not created accidentally. Otherwise, in the process of analysis, we could have attributed it to accident. The exact equivalent of the Sanskrit word yadrisha hatat is that which literally means suddenly, an unwise action done on the spur of the moment. The sound ha is the acoustic root of the sun and of the Vishuddha chakra, and the sound ta is the acoustic root of the Agya chakra, the portion of mind which regulates the body. And the physical energy is symbolized by the sound ta. When ha controls ta, it is called hatha yoga. That is to control one's subtle energy through physical energy. Hence, accident or yadrisha, which is only a relative concept, can never be the primordial cause, and it cannot be the omni-reflecting cognitive principle either. Then are the quinquelemental factors of matter the primordial cause? The physical body, composed of 5 fundamental factors, is activated by the physical nerve cells and nerve fibers, which are in turn controlled by the mind. The mind is the overall controller. To consider this material universe the primordial cause of creation is certainly erroneous. The 5 fundamental factors emerge from the cosmic mind, and from the 5 fundamental factors the unit mind emerge. By utilizing powerful bombs made by these unit minds, we can utilize matter at our own will to even destroy huge mountains. So how can matter, which is created and ruled by a mind, be called the absolute factor? It too cannot be said to be the supreme reflective principle. Those who consider matter as the primordial cause are living in a fool's paradise. Then is the unit consciousness, Jivatma, the primordial cause of creation. The unit consciousness is so assailed by its illusory bondages of Prakriti, by its actional bondages, and by the bondages of the gunas, that it cannot transcend its own labyrinthine limitations. Although the witnessing eye, Jivatma, of the microcosmic mind, can be the witnessing eye of the macrocosmic mind as well, yet in ordinary circumstances, that witnessing eye is confined within the limits of a particular unit mind. Under these circumstances, the jiva or unit consciousness, which is associated with the unit mind and assailed by the consequences of the action of the unit mind, cannot be called the supreme reflecting principle, because it is colored by the color of the unit mind. For instance, when a red rose is placed before a mirror, the mirror becomes red. Likewise, the unit consciousness also becomes assailed due to its proximity to the unit mind. Here the flower represents the unit eye and the mirror the unit consciousness. The unit consciousness, because of its closest association with the unit existential feeling, gets inseparably associated with the joys and sorrows of the microcosmos. Klesha karma vipakashya Ira paramrishta purusha vishesha ishvara. Until the jivatma or unit consciousness is unassailed by dint of sadhana or spiritual practice, it cannot be considered to have attained the rank of Ishvara. Hence the unit consciousness also cannot be considered as the supreme reflecting principle, the primordial cause of creation. What is the Achal Prati Samvedi Purusha? The scriptures say, Ksharam pradhanam amrita ksharam haraha ksharatmana vishate deva ekaha tasya bidyanad yojanat tattva babad bhuyashante vishvamaya nivritti. The instrumental cause of the metamorphosis of this universe is the 3 principles of Prakriti. Prakriti is an entity which is doing something, but it cannot be the material cause of or the efficient cause. Behind Shakti or energy itself is a blind force. Because behind the actional faculty of Prakriti there is no scope. for any moral principle. Shakti or energy itself is a blind force. If it is not supported by intellect or prajna, it is always crude and static. Suppose an electric hammer is being operated and a child accidentally smash it. Its blunt force will not spare the innocent child's hand. Hence the sadhana of Prakriti, divorced from the touch of Shiva consciousness, is highly dangerous. The cognitive principle itself is both the material cause and the efficient cause of creation. In the flow of creation, the cognitive principle is also inseparably associated with the creative force, although the cognitive principle is not the enjoyer of the fruits of action. Yet it maintains the closest association with the operative principle, and as such it cannot be the supreme reflective principle, Sharam Prati Samvedi. Hence only the unmanifested supreme cognition, which is above both the cognitive principle and the operative force, can be the supreme reflective principle, because when we reach both mutable and immutable, Kshara and Akshara, in the path of synthesis towards the One, we notice that in the previous stage, both of them have emanated from the unmanifested supreme cognition, Nirakshara. This unmanifested supreme cognition is the supreme reflective principle. Hence the unit consciousness will have to proceed from matter to mind, to consciousness, and from consciousness to the supreme cognition. All human beings are endowed with this capacity to move forward towards the supreme cognition. You all have come from the supreme entity, and you will all finally return unto it. That supreme reflective principle is the highest desideratum of your life. 1st October 1971, DMC, Calcutta.